As many as 97% of U.S. kids aged 12 to 17 play video games, contributing to the $21.3 billion domestic video game industry. As someone who has 3 brothers, video games have always been a focal point in my household. Wii Sport games have turned into violent games such as Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed over the years, and I can see the effect it has on my brothers. When they get angry with one another, they seem to turn to more aggressive means, such as tackling each other and throwing game controllers instead of talking through their issues. Studies have shown that violent video games could be one of the factors for the increased aggression behaviors in certain children and teens. Children and preteens are starting at younger ages to play these rated M games, which have been shown to promote increased violence toward peers, arguments with teachers, and hostility towards others. These aggressive themes that are present in video games, while intended for fun, however, may be doing more harm than good. Children who play violent video games on a daily basis are losing one very important emotion, empathy. When adolescents play games that encourage shooting people's heads off, they become desensitized and feel nothing while performing these actions. Psychology instructor Nicholas Carnegie and psychology professor Brad Bushman conducted a study to see the effects violent video games had on behaviors and thoughts. The study tested 257 college students who were randomly assigned a violent or non-violent game for 20 minutes. After they were told to watch a 10-minute clip of real violence on TV, including shootings and prison fights. They found that students who played the violent game before the clip had lower heart rates when viewing the real-life violence. The results demonstrated that playing violent video games, even for just 20 minutes, can cause people to become less psychologically aroused by real violence. Along with becoming desensitized from real-world violence, video games approach players with incentives so they will continue to play. They are often rewarded with points or coins in the game for killing someone, which creates the player to have a positive correlation between murder and reward. Having a positive reward like this encourages the behavior and makes the player want to continue the task. The effects video games have on the brain and behaviors was explored by Dr. Vincent Matthews of Indiana University. He studied 28 students who were randomly assigned to either play a violent video game or non-violent video game for a week. The study compared functional MRI scans that looked at brain activity before and after the participants played the games for a week. The results showed that students who played the violent video games had less activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area that involves emotion and impulses. Video games often require players to stimulate violent actions such as stabbing or shooting. Game controllers have become so sophisticated and the games so realistic that stimulating the violent acts enhances the learning of those violent behaviors. Over the past 30 years, graphics in video games have developed from only simple geometric shapes to these realistic stimulations. Although this new technology creates more realistic graphics for gamers, it also has raised questions if these sophisticated graphics are contributing to the increased aggression among children and teens. These graphics can lead a child to have a hard time distinguishing between fantasy and reality, thus having a hard time separate violence versus real-life violence in games. Parents, pediatricians, and medical associates have their concerns about violent video games and how it may be affecting the youth. Violent games can lead to increased aggression by lack of empathy caused by excessive playing time and graphics that make it hard for children to distinguish between fantasy and reality. One way parents can decrease the risk of their child having aggressive behavior is to limit screen time. Although the study by Bushman and Carnegie showed that only 20 minutes could affect someone, limiting screen time can still be beneficial. Another way for parents to help is to monitor what games their children are playing. Although people 16 and younger cannot buy mature-rated games, it does not mean their children cannot access them. It is important for children and teens to play games recommended for their age because otherwise the content in some games may not be appropriate. One final change parents can make is to encourage physical activities such as an outdoor activity that gets the player up and moving in place of violent video games. These simple but effective approaches can help reduce the effects violent games can have. Don't seek what you don't need from me. It's just